Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. For the first time in more than a decade, New Hampshire's 2nd District will have a new member of Congress. We've got both major party candidates coming in today. We want to get right to the questions, starting with the Republican nominee, Tang Williams. Lily, thanks for joining us.
Good to be back, Adam.
So what is the biggest contrast between you and your opponent, Maggie Goodlander?
Well, I have been telling my unique background for a while. I was not privileged to be born American. I was born into poverty in a communist country. I had to come here to work really hard, learn English, and make money and save money to achieve my American dream. I mean, people know my stories already. And then Maggie was born with a, I don't know how Americans say that, with a silver spoon in her mouth. And very privileged to be born in as a Granny Slater, then went to DC for 15 years and just moved back a few months ago to run for this open seat. If you look at her donors, you look at her supporters, and she's a part of this swamp, really, if people don't like swamp. And she's a part of a failed policy of Biden and Harris, and people are worried about, like from economy, inflation to border crisis and the censorship and wars all over the world because we're weak. So she's a part of that. So if people want to change, they want to trust somebody who will speak to them at a personal level and address their concerns, and they should try me. Actually, I'm a very different candidate.
You've been calling on her to do more forums, more debates, more joint appearances, a lot of on-campus stuff. What's been the response?
Well, that college, like Dartmouth, they have asked me 3-4 weeks ago, right after I won their primaries, to say congratulations, let's do a debate. We'd love to have you back, because I did a primary debate there. And I said, that's a great idea, because I love college students, and they need to hear different opinions and different stories, messages. So I said, yeah, go get the college Republicans, or they call it a conservative union, and with Democrats, college Democrats involved, so we can have, open debates. And I think it's exciting to involve our kids. And I personally, love to engage people. But there's no day. We've been working since like 3-4 weeks ago to trying to do it. Actually, next week. No response. And so now Plymouth State University said, well, we have no response either, but we're going to do town hall anyway for you. She's still welcome to come. I would love to engage her and take questions from the audience. So I hope that it still will happen.
On immigration, Donald Trump's biggest promise is he is back in office is a mass deportation event, the biggest in U.S. history. What should be done with the children of undocumented migrants who are U.S. citizens? If they have babies, toddlers, first graders, for example, who are U.S. citizens, should the families be separated or the children taken into custody of the state and given to foster families? What do you do with that dilemma?
So my immigration policy is always, we want to encourage people to come here legally and shut down the border and protect our citizens. Also, it is a national security risk, and also we are benefiting, our policy right now are benefiting drug cartels and the human traffickers. When it comes to deportation, once Republican win the majority, win the White House, I hope that happens. Let's shut down the border, then address the issues of illegals are here, committed a crime, immediately deport those people. And also, if we take away financial assistance, no more social welfare on the back of taxpayers, I think it will encourage peaceful self-deportation. Some people come here, hey, their free stuff is gone. If they don't have good jobs, they might just go back home, And the third, I want to open up to the compassionate Americans. If you want to adopt some illegals and their families because they have good job, they're good people, you feel sympathetic towards them. Just like me, I was a sponsor for my brother. And when he come here with his wife and kids, 3 people live with me for 2 years and without any eligibility for the public assistance. It is an American one to say, you come here for the first 5 years, you are on the back of your sponsors. But public's not going to support you. So encourage them to work hard. And also, there's no ID issue, there's no public security issue because you know who they are and they're in good homes, they're working. So that's my policies I would like to recommend. And so there, and number two, I want to also add, when we deport people, let's deport illegals from red state to blue state, because blue state, they have more people there, they have sexual policies. So if New Hampshire people decided, it's kind of state rights, we don't want sexual cities here, well, they can all go to Massachusetts or New York. And once they have problems, there are people to say, we don't want this either. Then they shut down their sectional cities. So I think that will happen just gradually, that of course that it will take time and we have to do a human way. That's why I offer adoption and for American sponsors to step in.
We've talked a lot about your biography. Having grown up the way you did under Mao in communist China, I think you're born a couple of years after the Great Leap Forward. Millions of people died, mass starvation. You were a child through the Cultural Revolution. You've seen the worst that powerful people can do to people living in their own country. So when you hear Donald Trump say, I want to be a dictator on day one, does that bother you at all?
Well, I watched his entire, actually, question-answer session. See, that's something with the mainstream media. They will take one sentence out of that thing, but he only said, I will be dictator on day one when it comes to border security. He will shut down the border. Basically, he uses a pen to reverse all the executive orders Biden put into place, cause this massive illegal immigration crisis in our country.
But that's a presidential action. That's different than being, those are his words.
His words say that I will shut down the borders, I will close the borders, I will secure the borders. But all you heard from mainstream media to say, I will be dictator on day one, but they don't talk about on what issue. So that got cut out. So I encourage people to find the entire interview and not just listen to like one line.
Fair enough. Is there a day two with someone, I guess, just out of curiosity, is there a day two? If someone's dictator on day one, what does day two even look like?
See, the thing so I don't feel like, Donald Trump is the one who wants to be dictator. He's the one who actually was censored, was shut down by big tech, was impeached, indicted, even charged and bankrupted, even shot. So I saw him, he was not dictator for 4 years, from 2016 to 2020. He already proved himself under his policies, regardless of what people like him or not, his personality. But under his policies, our life were pretty good. There was no wars, and inflation was no, border was secure. I always tell people rationally look at the policies. We are hiring the most important job right now. We need to be rational to say who can do the best job. And I'm not going to marry that guy. Who can do best job at the best cost for us, for the taxpayers, for the middle class, regular people. I think that he's really best choice for president. But let's not focus on him. Let's focus on the people who support him. They just want to have a better life and peace also. And I just don't believe that the attack on him, he's a dictator, because I know Biden administration and trying to cancel him and also trying to even censor former Democrat like Robert Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, who they don't say like Trump is dictator. They say the Biden administration trying to act in a tyrannical way. So that's just
fair enough. Story. And it's not an attack, they're just his words. But on abortion, you said you support this being returned to the states. When it comes to the individual rights of a human being and the state and the idea of bodily autonomy, why should an American woman, a citizen of the United States, have different rights over her body in different states?
Well, because this is a very divisive and also very, very emotional issue for both sides. I hear from both sides. So my personal opinion is always it's a state issue. Let the state to decide. Let's say that when you look at the state, who are in charge of crimes, like what is a felony, what is not, it belongs to the state. I want to go to Washington to try to limit federal government's powers, interference, and over intrusiveness in people's lives. I mean, empower state is better because empower state rights is empower the people in that state to decide. And we decided as granny staters 6 months, and which I respect their choice, because we have 400 state representatives. Need them to fight it out to represent the people. For every 3,000 positions as a state representative, then you have 1 seat. So that's as democratic as you can get at the grassroots level. I really love about our granny state system. So I think that this is the best way also for people to work that out, because I'm sympathetic actually towards both lives involved on this issue. But Maggie lied about me. She said I will go to Congress to ban abortion at national level. Why would she lie about me? She's repeating DNC talking points. And if she keep lying, people will not trust her. If you have not won the state, you already lie to the people who are deciding who they should vote for, then you should not be representing them as Congresswoman. That's what I would say to her.
All right, Lily Tang Williams, it's always fun talking to you. We appreciate it, but we're out of time. So thank you so much for being on Close Up.
And bye.
All right, we'll be right back with the Democratic nominee, Maggie Goodlander. Stay with us.